built a nice regression model for our data, our insurance data in this case. But how do we use it? How do we put it to use so that we can now use it to make decisions? And here's what we can do in Excel. We're going to do a very basic deployment by creating a new sheet in our workbook that allows a user to key in or select various values and then calculate what the projected insurance costs are. So maybe an insurance company analyst could use this to kind of look at possibilities. So let's see how that might work. We've got our insurance tab, all of the analysis we've done, the models, our MAEs. We like model 2, so we'll highlight that. And now we're going to create a new tab, and we'll call this calculator. And let's build a couple headers of the feature that we want. And then the value. And what features do we want? Well, we'll go back to insurance and scroll down, find our model 3 that we like. Let's see, or no, I'm sorry, model 2B. Yeah, model 2B. And we want sex Boolean all the way down to BMI. I'm going to, actually, let's, no, I'll copy and paste those. Paste values. And then I'll go ahead and underline my headers here and bold them. Okay. Now, these are some pretty developer-y names for these. I'm going to actually copy these over one more time over to the right a little bit. Okay. So we'll call this sex, smoker, and then we'll just put a question mark after it. And we're not necessarily going to say, well, do you live in the Southwest? Well, no. Do you live in the Northwest? What we would do is put a field together just called region, and then allow the user to make their decision based on that. So let's hold off on that. Number of children. Age. And BMI. Okay, so I'm going to copy these up. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to, at least for these Boolean fields, sex, smoker, and region, we're not sure everybody's going to type everything in the same. Man, woman, male, female, etc. So we're going to give them a drop-down list to use instead. And we'll call this male and female. And then smoker, we can say yes or no. For region, we have Southeast, Southwest, Northeast, and Northwest. I suppose most of the time these would be presented alphabetically, but this is a short enough list that I think it'll be okay like this. So now what can we do here? We'll do a little formatting here and say, okay, well, here are the values that someone is going to select. So I'll put a border around all that. And then what we want to do is calculate predicted charges. All right. So we've got ourselves set up. Now let's build our calculator. So for sex, we're going to go, let's go to data. And in this first field for sex, I'm going to go to data validation. And then I've got a couple options down below there. I'll just choose data validation. And the setting I want to use is one that says allow, well, I can allow any value. That's kind of the way it's set up right now. I can also put some basic details here. So I may do whole number for number of children and age, and then decimal for BMI. But for what I want right now, let's say list. I want a list. And we'll put a drop down right in the cell here. So that's what this means, in cell drop down. And then it asks, well, where is this list you'd like me to choose from? And it is right here, male and female. So I'll click OK. And now when I go here to sex, I've got a little drop down and I can choose male or female. All right, let's do smoker. We'll walk through smoker, do the same thing, data validation, list. And that is going to be yes or no. Region, same thing. Okay, and then I'll do a little data validation here just to make age and number of children whole numbers, data validation, whole number between a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 100. I haven't heard of anybody that's had more than 100 kids, but I guess it's possible. Same thing here, data validation, whole number. And we'll make that between 0 and 150. And then BMI we'll just leave as is. Okay, so now let's see what we're going to do. We've got sex Boolean. I'm going to right justify those. And intercept. And I'm going to go and just make a formula that references my preferred model, which is 2B here. And copy those down. Okay, so I now have my coefficients and my intercept. So what I'll do here now is say, what is my variable value? And I'll do that by selecting from sex Boolean. Okay, so we know females 1, males 0. So I'll just write a quick if here, equals if this equals female, then I have 1 in this value, otherwise 0. Okay, so right now I have 1, and I will do this male, yeah, it changes to 0. Okay, smoker Boolean equals if my smoker field equals yes, then 1 else 0. So far I don't have anything in it, so it's 0. And then I will do my region. So I've changed region, so I'm actually selecting the region name instead of Southwest Boolean, Northwest Boolean, Northeast Boolean. So I'll create my if, and then I'm going to go ahead and make my region absolute so I can copy this down a little easier. So if $B, $4 equals southwest, then 1 else 0. And I need to remember to put southwest in quotation marks here. All right, and I can now copy this down and just change what I'm looking for. So this is northwest, and then northeast. Children, I'm just going to grab whatever value they have plugged into children. Same with age and BMI. Okay, so now I've got my multipliers. I don't have any conversions in this particular model, but this is something you would want to consider if you had used, we tested out square root of age. Well, nobody's going to sit around and think of what the square root of their age is. You know, if I'm 23 years old, what is the square root of 23? I don't know. So I would just put in 23, and that's the way you should set up your calculator, that they put in their actual age, and then you would go about calculating the square root somewhere over here in your little calculator area. All right. So now let's see, I'm going to change some of these values just to test. Okay, female turns sex boolean to 1. That's good. Smoker. Let's see. Yes. That's 1. No equals 0. We're good so far. Now I'll have to test region, and I'm going to watch southwest, northwest, and northeast, whether they turn on and off at the appropriate time. So southeast, nothing turns on. That's good. Southwest, yeah, that one turns on. Northeast, that one turns on. Northwest. All right, so our region drop down seems to be working okay. And then I can type in how many children do I have. Yeah, that comes across my age. That's not my real age, but we'll pretend for now. And my BMI, let's say my BMI is 33. Okay, so everything seems to be coming across okay. And now I just, well, if I want to, I can just bring across my intercept. And then from here, it's just a matter of multiplying all of my factors times the variable value, and then adding those all up. So my predicted charges over here will be the sum of all this. All right. And then I can format that so that it's looks like something I would expect. And I can predict my charges that way. So not smoker, female, I can turn smoker on, watch the predicted charges go way up. I can change my region, watch my charges change the number of children, etc. All right, so we have a nice calculator here. The next thing I would do is I'm going to take columns E through Q and hide them. All right, so when someone comes to this sheet, we've got a nice clean calculator. Of course, you can do some additional formatting and clean this up quite a bit. Or if you're really ambitious, you could create another sheet that has all the calculation details hidden on it and then hide the sheet itself. An observant Excel user will notice, hey, it goes from D to R, and then maybe try and unhide those columns to see what's in them. So, you know, but you have a lot of options that you can use to set this up for an end user however you'd like. And that more or less is kind of the way that websites work. When you fill in a form on a website and it gives you an immediate response, basically what's happening is the calculations are taking place either on the web page itself and your browser's doing the work, or the calculations are taking place, and this is probably more likely, back on the web server to present the results to you even within the same web page you're on. If you've got an active web page up, which a lot of web pages are active and allow for immediate feedback, immediate response to input. All right, so we've built a calculator. We've hidden it so it looks nice, and of course I know a lot of you can set this up to make it look even better and more professional. But that's all we need to do for this video. Let's move on and see what we need to do next.